Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another special episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast. Today, we were lucky enough to do another remote podcast with a buddy of yours who you've been following for how many years?
3.
3 years.
2 to 3 years, yeah.
3 years. So for 2 or 3 years, every single day you watched one of this man's videos.
Yeah, he has a video. It's called Ode to Excellence, which we found out during this interview was his very first video.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
First rep was a good one.
Yeah, it really was. This conversation was awesome. His name is Pinero. He has a YouTube channel called Your World Within.
Yes, and Instagram as well. Your World Within on Instagram.
Your_World Within on Instagram. Hell yes. He has 150,000 subscribers. I think it's 147 or so thousand. And 22 million views.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So his videos are amazing. Definitely check him out. We interviewed him today. Phenomenal. Do you want me to read the bio, Kevin?
You can read the bio. Eddie is just super motivational, and if you're looking for a way to start your day, watch one of his videos because it's going to set your mind right for the entire day. But I'll let Alan read the bio because I can't read.
All right. So meet the founder. This is on yourworldwithin.com. Eddie Pinero is a speaker and producer from Boston, Massachusetts, with a passion for inspiring others, an avid runner and former D1 athlete. Eddie has taken his competitive mindset to the realm of entrepreneurship, creating multiple businesses and reaching millions of entrepreneurs, athletes, and others around the globe. From the keynote presentations he provides to the viral video content he produces, Eddie's message is clear. Anything is possible in life if you believe in yourself and work toward your dreams. So obviously, if you're a listener of this podcast, that is very congruent with everything that we believe in.
Yes.
So he was an awesome guest.
It could be the most congruent.
Yeah, it was great. So in this interview, we talked about a lot of different things. One of the things that we're going to try differently today is there's a particular video, as mentioned, that I've listened to pretty much every day for the last 2 years. And first thing in the morning when your subconscious mind is most impressionable. And it's called Ode to Excellence, and we are going to input that audio.
Yes.
And
so we will do that after our intro. So after our intro, you'll hear the Ode to Excellence, which is his product, and it's a great motivational video. You'll hear it, and then it'll make sense why we're talking about the things we are, and it'll help put a put a product to the name.
Yeah, absolutely. So enjoy this interview. Eddie's awesome. Expect him on the podcast again. He's from the Boston area. We're hoping to get him back up here. He recently moved down to Florida, and enjoy this episode.
Enjoy. No. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that fucking thing. They're going to want to see that fucking thing, Alan. That fucking face. You good?
Ready?
They say that the probability of being born is 1 in 400 trillion. I'm a living, breathing miracle. Every second here on earth is a gift, and I'll never let it slip away. Each day that I'm alive, I will be better than I was the day before. When life gets hard, I will work harder. I don't make excuses. I face my challenges head on and I conquer them. I refuse to be average, and though the world may try to keep me down, I will prevail. The faith I have in myself exceeds all else. I will never be outworked, out-hustled, or outsmarted. If you run 6 miles, I will run 7. If you lift 200 pounds, I will lift 250. I will win or I will die. That is who I am. have never come across an obstacle that is insurmountable. The world does not provide barriers, it provides unlimited opportunity. If I get knocked down, I will get back up, and I will be better because of it. Telling me something can't be done only further ignites my desire to succeed. I know that the road less traveled is difficult, but diverting from it was never an option. The only person responsible for my success is me. In my final moments, looking back on my life, I will have no regrets. I will have left no stone unturned. The sacrifices made, the blood, sweat, and tears, the countless hours put into my craft will not have been in vain. This is what makes a champion. This is who I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. And as always, we have a cool story behind how the guest that we have on today became the guest that we have on today. Alan is mostly involved in the story. I have nothing to do with it. So we're going to let Alan tell the story.
Yeah, so Eddie Pinero, I connected with you on Instagram about, I want to say 2 years ago, because your YouTube channel, which is called Your World Within, has two videos in particular that I have in my sort of morning mindset workout. So I have a playlist on my YouTube channel that says Mindset Workout, and Ode to Excellence is one of the videos. The other one is Have the Guts. And I listened to those videos literally hundreds of times, pretty much every morning for the last 2 to 3 years. So it's very exciting to finally get you on the phone, Eddie.
Likewise, I appreciate it. And it's crazy that it's 2 years ago.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So you were local, and we wanted to get coffee. You were like in Boston, I believe. And I know that you went to Holy Cross, so we're kind of both from the Worcester area-ish, because I went to WPI, so we connect on that. I know we're near the same age, so before I start sounding too creepy about how much I've stalked you, so you moved down to Florida kind of out of the blue, or at least what appeared to be out of the blue from me. What prompted all that?
A lot of things. I think it was just some personal stuff, and the idea that things were kind of getting stagnant. And one of the great things that, a lot of what I do is writing speeches from my studio or consulting over the phone. And it's like, I don't need to be in one place to do that. So I figured, I don't know how much longer in life I'll be able to go wherever I want to go. So why not take advantage of it? That was kind of my thought.
Love it.
And so why land on Florida? Just curious. And I love that mindset, bound by nothing.
Yeah, sunshine. I just, want to take a little break from the cold. So
love it, man. Okay, so you've been down there for about a year?
Yeah, almost exactly.
So word on the street, and by word on the street, I mean you texting me. You gave a TED Talk this past weekend because we wanted to get you on the podcast last Saturday. I know, that's awesome. That's a dream of mine. I'm assuming a dream of yours. How did it go? What did you talk about? What was your experience?
It was really cool. Just the entire process. Just the people I spoke with were crazy inspirational, and the idea of kind of getting to share my thoughts. And I talked about specifically. I wrote a speech couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, called Running in the Rain, where I talk about the idea of stepping headfirst into discomfort,
Yeah.
and how that ultimately benefits you. So in this speech, and it was short for the TED Talk, it's about 8.5, 9 minutes. I
Okay.
took that concept and applied it to my life over the past couple of years, and how specifically that's impacted me and helped me grow. So that was my topic, but it went really well, and just incredible experience.
Do you think, well, obviously I'm sure you will, because mindset, and clearly you're all about getting out of your comfort zone. Do you think doing something like that, or how do you think doing something like that is going to help you in your future? Because there's a lot of people out there that have this goal, they have this dream, but they kind of psych themselves out. And I'm sure like you stepping up to a TED Talk stage or a TEDx Talk stage, whichever it was, I'm sure that is probably, you probably have nerves beyond belief. So how did you like actually make that happen from the aspect of just pushing yourself that far out of your comfort zone? And do you have any advice for people who might have something similar that they're kind of holding back from doing, and how they can get the motivation to do it?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, and it's such an important thing. And I think something that made it easy, or easier, because you're right. I mean, it's a nerve-wracking thing. It's an exciting thing. So obviously, your nerves are going, but it's when you've made it a habit to kind of step, and it's nothing. A lot of the times, it's nothing drastic. Sometimes it needs to be, but you just make that part of who you are. When something big arises or a conflict arises, you step into it, and over time that just becomes your identity. You don't run. You say, all right, well, this is going to make me better. And as I'm sure you guys know, it normalizes the adversity. So it might suck today, it might be uncomfortable today, but you stepped into it, and you know next week it won't be, and that enables you to kind of take that next step, and it snowballs, right? And so that was sort of my mentality. It was like, well, here's another opportunity, another step. And, a little nervous, but hey, let's make it happen and see where it takes us.
So in your videos on Your World Within YouTube channel, you're always talking about mindset. That's what Your World Within is about. It's about get the inner world right so that you can start, shaping your outer world from within.
Absolutely.
I think that's so huge, because I think that a lot of us are bombarded with mass media, commercials, advertisements, and it seems like, a lot of people are working from the outside in rather than the other way around. Do you think that, so what was it that catalyzed this whole entrepreneurial endeavor? Because I know you went to Holy Cross doing the college thing like I did. A lot of the speakers, entrepreneurs, real impact, positive impact type of people that are really doing what you're talking about, which is stepping into discomfort on a consistent enough basis to have a real, like, a lot of growth. I noticed that they usually had some sort of trauma in their past that catalyzed this moment of, quantum moment where they're like, okay, never again am I going to, live below my potential. And then that kind of compounded, as you snowballed from there. So for you, was there a, we talk about PTSD all the time, but this is more post-traumatic growth. Do you have like a moment or an incident or something that catalyzed it? Like, obviously it's a daily thing, but was there a moment that shifted, like, tipping point for you?
That's what makes that such an amazing question. It's like, there was nothing. I could have done that for the rest of my life. And it's almost like the human mind, like I wanted to create some dramatic situation that would be my excuse to leave. Because, I mean, truth be told, working that job that I didn't like, my creativity was stifled, and I didn't have the balls to go. And so, it took a long time for me to kind of step away. And I would say, that decision was the first kind of big against the grain decision I've ever made. And then came, the traumatic stuff, right? And that's exactly what the TED Talk was about. Not having that income coming in, not knowing what the future was going to look like, but stepping forward anyway, because that's when it starts to really suck. You're tested.
I love that you just said that, because after you make that decision, I worked in corporate America, made, a lot of money, rose fast in sales, had an electrical and computer engineering degree, which again is all the safe bets. There's nothing wrong with that. It just, it wasn't me living up to my full potential, and I didn't enjoy it. And I took that leap. I think it's great that you mentioned that you had a vision, but that you immediately after that decision of I'm done with this, it's really, really fucking difficult, because
That's when the party starts. Right?
Yeah, dude, there's so much uncertainty, man. Like, because in the long term, you've got that vision. And it's like, okay, but where do I fucking start? So for you, you landed on YouTube. What was it? You said your creative potential was stifled in corporate America. I can only understand why, obviously. You jumped and took the entrepreneurial leap. What landed you on YouTube? Did you used to do sort of audio recordings? Like hindsight's 2020 in your childhood. Was there anything that indicated this sort of path in hindsight?
Yeah, so I left with sort of a vague idea even. I was a singer-songwriter. I still am in a lot of ways. I write music, and I started recording a little EP and just playing shows all around Boston. And I mean, and even that was uncomfortable, standing in front of a room by myself with an acoustic guitar. I'd never really done that. And I just did that nonstop for about 6-7 months. And obviously that's not, especially starting out, I mean, that's not a lucrative thing. And so I turned to YouTube to record those acoustic covers. And the first time I put something up for Your World Within was Ode to Excellence. And it was kind of like a promise to myself, like, don't quit. Put your back against the wall. You've never had the courage to do that before. So see what happens. Because I had this belief that I won't let myself fail. I mean, that's always what we fear, right? Worst case scenario, like, shit, I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to have nothing. Right. I'm going to be an embarrassment to my family, all these things. Would we ever let that happen? No, we'd find a way. You just got to trust yourself. And that's what that's about.
So Ode to Excellence was your first video?
First video I ever put out.
No way, yo. Okay, so I was in the car earlier today, and I always say turn your car into a classroom. I'm sure you've heard that. I was listening to a Brian Tracy speech, and it was blowing me away because he basically, one of his favorite books is Search for Excellence, and he basically said that in all of his studies, anyone who's at the top of their industry, like world class, basically decided ahead of time that they wanted to be world class. And what he meant by that is they decided to be excellent. And he basically says in this speech, Eddie, that if you aren't going to decide I'm going to be world class at this thing, that then success is almost not possible, at least to the extraordinary level. Yeah. Ode to Excellence was your first video. That's so kind of cool to me right now because that was kind of you deciding that I'm going to commit to excellence. And I've seen that video literally hundreds of times, probably 1,000 to be honest. So 1,000 of your views are from me. Just so you know. But I love the Tom Brady in the background. You've got the Celtics in there. It's so Boston, man. And it's basically an ode to excellence in the sense of like, I will not quit no matter what happens, and all the reps, all the failures will be worth it in the long run if I master my craft to the extent I want to. So I think that's so huge. So what do we say to people that maybe know on some level that they're capable of more, but they haven't made that like commitment within themselves to be like world class at something?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things, right? You have to trust yourself and know that you won't let yourself fail. And the other thing is, the illusion that by next Tuesday you'll be what you want to be, and that's just not the case. Yeah, right. Wins are very little. And they're, step by step, they're very much a process. And sometimes it's frustrating. I always say, some of the videos on my channel that have the least amount of views, I put everything into those and thought they were going to be game changers. And it's like real easy to be discouraged.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are like been there, done that?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Eddie, for sure.
Yeah. Fail forward is what we call it.
Right.
Exactly.
Eddie, you were talking about belief, and it's, the more I think about it, the more I believe in myself and those around me. I realize that I think that probably is the most important attribute to somebody who is going to succeed. How do you believe when you've been taught your whole life that you have to do what everybody else is doing? And most of the people around me for a lot of my life didn't believe in themselves. So I kind of took on that identity. So what would you say to somebody who, like, what's a good initial step for somebody who just doesn't have that self-belief?
Yeah, it's do something small. Prove it to yourself. I mean, through repetition, when you take that little step and realize that the world doesn't end, you become accustomed to it, and you can do it over and over and over and over again. I remember, and forgive me, I don't know if this is Ryan Holiday's quote or he's just using it, but in one of his books, he says confidence is earned. And I totally believe that. I mean, there's no reason day one you should feel like you're the master.
Oh, right.
But your potential, right? And so just make a little step forward, even if it hurts, even if it's uncomfortable. And after 1,000 little steps, you know you got it. So
So the Ryan Holiday, shout out to him. I love his book. So Ego is the Enemy. The Obstacle is the Way. I've read all those. I think that was from Ego is the Enemy, by the way, because that's kind of the opposite of humility right there, is expecting to be confident after one rep.
I think you're right. Yeah.
We always talk about people that, so I've listened to your video, and I always keep going back to this Ode to Excellence like 1,000 times. A lot of people would be like, you're crazy. Why would you do that? Because repetition is the mother of skill. I'm sure you've heard that. Like, you don't go to the gym once and be naturally fit for life. Like, you have to just keep hammering it every single day, and you kind of earn confidence, like you said. One thing I wanted to ask you is, what is the impact you want to have with your channel? Because I think I have my perception of it, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, because I'm your target demographic, brother. Like, someone who wants to be better, and, listening to those mindset videos, it's programming my identity that I'm going to commit to excellence. And, what is your original goal versus what it is today? Is that the same? What impact do you want to have on people, like me?
That's it. That's exactly right. I mean, to help people understand how much of life is mental. It wasn't that long ago where I thought it was, kind of fluffy, to be honest. It's like mindset, self-help, okay. But it's, truly what you think about yourself is what you become. And I've seen that, I've lived it over the past few years, and I want to articulate that in a way that's fun, that's exciting, that's emotional, that gets people, ecstatic and ready to make changes. And I've always kind of gotten a kick out of that, and that's what I want to continue to do.
So obviously you make these videos, which I watched a couple today, and let me tell you, I will be watching them every day, because I had gotten up at like 5:30. I drove an hour home from Boston, and I was like not even sitting. I was standing in my dining room just listening, and I was like, oh shit. Oh shit, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So obviously making these helps put you in the mindset, making these motivational videos. What else do you do to practice what you preach? Like, what else do you do to get yourself out of your comfort zone? And when I say that, I mean the stuff that people aren't seeing, the stuff that you do when it's dark, when it's cold, when you don't want to. Like, what else are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of personal stuff, right? I mean, in terms of moving across the country, not knowing anyone, making relationship. I mean, it's never easy to interact with strangers or go to a meetup or make a business move or push yourself into a place or space that you haven't before. There's even vulnerability in sharing your thoughts, articulating them on YouTube in front of an audience.
Right.
So I think, particularly from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that's been one of the biggest things. Is I've made a lot of mistakes, right? And so being able to kind of take what I've learned and keep pushing forward has been both a learning experience and a testament to that mindset. But then the athletic piece too, which you could argue kind of triggered the whole thing. But that always reinforces the mind. I mean, as you know, there's such a tie between physical fitness. I think you actually just mentioned this not so long ago, and sort of that entrepreneurial mindset that's so important. And so by running all the time and moving into ultra marathons, which I'm doing now.
Nice.
You're a sicko.
Killing it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
How do you, so I've never been like a huge runner. I used to run, and I have this analogy that I use. I don't know if it's an analogy, but if you practice the splits every day, you'd be able to do the splits eventually, right? Most people do it once. They realize, oh, that hurts my crotch. I'm not going to do that anymore. So they never learn how to do the splits. So for those who don't know what an ultra marathon is, can you explain what that is? And also, what level of focus and what level of belief do you have to run when your body is like, no, man, I'm cramping, or it really is mind over matter at the ultra marathon level, the marathon level, anything like that, right?
Yeah. Well, an ultra marathon is technically anything over the 26.2.
Okay.
And there are, a million different variations of that, from, 50K to like 200K, 250K. There's a lot of different variations. But I think, to answer that question, I think running at any level pertains to this, but you come into some sort of pain. I mean, it's inevitable,
right? Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so to be able to win or even complete the race, you have to push forward, and that reemphasizes that same message. It's like you can never avoid what sucks if you want to do something spectacular. You just can't. And there's another thing too, is an element of fear, right? I mean, when your body's not comfortable, there's sometimes it's not extreme, but there's always like a little bit of panic there, like, oh no, what if?
Yeah.
Dot. And I think overcoming that is a huge part. So it's pretty mental.
You just hit the feels for me. I'm in show prep right now. I got a men's physique competition coming up on June 2nd, and I've been a little behind in my prep, so I got to lose 10 pounds in 5 weeks. So it's time to do some running myself.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, run some ultras. I weigh like 110 pounds now.
Definitely gotta step up on my cardio. But that panic feeling you're talking about, when you get really, really lean for a fitness show, it kind of, physiology affects mindset, mindset affects physiology. It's a symbiotic relationship. We know that. When you start getting real, real lean, or in your case, at the end of a race, when you're trying to push through that wall, that is kind of when you come to your true self. So Kevin and I tried to run a 6-minute mile together.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so we were like, Kevin, we were in the gym, right? Lifting weights. That's our arena. And then Kevin said something like, oh, I can run a 6-minute mile. I'm like, no, you can't. And he's like, all right, let's go. And so we did it that day. It was rainy. We went to the WPI track. And I think I ended up with 6:13. Kevin ended up...
I died that day a little bit. A little bit of me is still on that track for the Worcester, the WPI people to look over and laugh at.
Oh, well, hey, you poured your heart out.
Yeah, he did, man. He did. He was, and I think it's a humbling experience, but it kind of... The amount of pain that you have to go through to do a 6-minute mile when like I consider myself an athlete, but I was very humbled, and it kind of reinforced sort of a fire within me to kind of get better. Do you feel like that's why I always say everyone should have their sport? Running is your sport?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Awesome. So running's your sport. So is that sort of what you use to train your mind as well as your body?
I have for the past couple of years. In college, it was rowing. It was crew.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And the funny thing about it is I didn't particularly like the sport at all. I mean, I viewed it as it almost seemed torturous. But, little did I know I'd take so much of that with me after school. I mean, when I cite my 4 years in college, that is hands down 100% the most important thing out of my experience. But yeah, since graduation, it's 100% been running.
So my thought, like we were talking earlier about, you would never let yourself get to the point where you're homeless. What is the biggest, and you can't see us, but I'm putting this in quotes for those who can. What is the biggest failure that you've experienced thus far in your, chasing your dreams and your entrepreneurial endeavors? Like, what is the biggest thing that you failed at, or the one time where like everything kind of just hit the fan and you really, really had to pick yourself up and say, look, I can fucking do this. This is just a bump in the road. This isn't the end.
Oh man, there's been so many. I mean, yeah, there's been so many lessons. Like I said, a lot of videos that I put out that haven't done well. I've given keynote speeches that have just maybe bombed isn't the right word, but no one left that building feeling great. You know what I mean? I've come a long way there, but you got to kind of throw yourself to the lions at first, and just I mean, a lot of mistakes in that realm.
Does any jump off the page that you had, that sort of proverbial dark night of the soul where you didn't know we all have those, occasional doubts. I always say we're seeing a lot of the polished product, but we're not seeing the person, I'm not on camera when I'm in bed struggling. Right. So what jumps off the page for you as a moment where it was like soldier up or this is not going to work? Do you have a specific one?
If I had to relate the biggest, it was probably within that first, 9 months after leaving work when I made this EP, and I sent it. I got like copies made, right, and physical copies and a cover design, all this stuff, and you're proud of it. You put your heart and soul into it. I drove it to every radio station in Boston, college radio stations. I dropped it off at every single club or like bar anywhere in the greater Boston area. I mailed it sometimes twice, and zero exaggeration, never heard back once. And I remember thinking, like, wow, you can really put that much time and energy into something and just see nothing,
Yep.
no validation. That to that extent had never happened to me before. But it was sort of the beginning of that mindset too, because I remember depersonalizing it, and you learn, right? You're reaching out to see if you can play a venue. You're talking to the guy, and he says, "No, I'm going to pass on you." You don't take that as, okay, I suck. You take it as, okay, next.
Yep.
What do I learn from it? What can I do better? And you move on, and that's been crucial. But yeah, that was tough right out of the gate.
Yeah, man. So I don't think you would, it's those adversities that build the emotional muscle that's necessary to like put in the reps that are bigger later. It's like in hindsight, you look at that emotional turmoil that you went through, and doesn't it seem like that's kind of what you needed to go through, at least on some level, in order to get to the level you are now? You have that one video about the best is basically an idea. There's no such real thing as best because you can always better your best. And
Right.
I know you know of Greg Plitt. He's one of my heroes. He says this. He says, when good enough isn't enough, tomorrow you'll always have enough. He basically says, people say if it's not broken, don't fix it. But if it could be better, it's as good as broken. So it's that ode to excellence mentality where it's like there's really no such thing as best because someone always goes beyond what everyone thinks is possible right now. So it's like, do you feel like those adversities, those reps you put in with no external validation are necessary in order for you to eventually succeed?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And the idea, like you said, of tomorrow, that it's sort of a renewed opportunity. I really believe that the second or I should say, limits do not exist in your life until you create them. And so, but they're manufactured, right? And so I could take what happened with the music stuff and immediately build a wall and say, well, that's it. That's not for me. I'm done. I suck. Or you can assess the situation and take it as a learning experience and move on and keep building and keep creating. And to your point, if you do that, who's to say where's the finish line? There really isn't.
Yeah.
So we create those stopping points.
What you just said is huge. Like, so that the fact that your EP didn't do what it wanted or didn't do what you wanted it to might have been the best thing that has ever happened to you, realistically. And I always use this analogy. It's like a video game. Life is like a video game. You get stuck in the first level, and then you find this shortcut, or you learn this thing that you didn't even know you needed to know. When you get to the third level, you're like, oh shit, I got a sword in the first level that I can use here. And I like to use analogies, Eddie. I think analogies are life. But yeah, man, it's like, to me, it's almost like the lack of doing creates the lack of knowledge to know that not knowing everything doesn't matter. Like, there's things that I don't know that I know I'm going to need to know, and I'm going to fail when I don't know them, but eventually I will know them. It's just a weird thing, man. It's like, you really have to be vulnerable. You really have to stick your head out there and be willing to take some punches, because you're going to learn how to cover up if you do.
Exactly. And trust, right? I mean, the line from point A to point B is not straight.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's zigzag for sure. And so you have to know that you pivot, right? I mean, so I don't have millions of views, playing an acoustic guitar, but I've composed background music to some of these tracks that have 1 million views. It's just a pivot. I mean, it's taking what you have, learning, growing, and also you sort of figure out, a combination of what you're really good at and called to do and what you love. And it happened to be the same thing. And it was a direction. I mean, 5 years ago, I wasn't saying, you know what, I'm going to write inspirational speeches. I'm going to make video. I mean, it's just, you have to sort of jump and feel it out. And if you're waiting until you have that perfectly defined answer, you'll never move.
That blew my mind, what you just said there, because that made so much sense. That whole thing just made...
That was gold.
Yeah, that was
gold.
gold.
Be a teaser clip. We're gonna have to write down
for sure
comment on that. So one thing I wanted to ask you, there's a couple questions that I like to ask all of my guests. I'm gonna hammer them real quick.
Sure.
One of them is, who are your heroes? Another one is, who are your mentors? And then the third one is, what are your favorite books? And attached to all three of these questions, rapid fire, is why.
Ooh, all right. So heroes, I think I would say more personal, right? Like my family, the folks that have sort of been there helping me push through the past few years. I feel like I owe them everything because those times when I was most vulnerable, they had my back. So I would definitely go that route for heroes. Do you mind repeating the second one?
Yeah, no problem. I hammered a lot at once. So the first one was heroes. The second one was mentors, which could be the same potentially. And then the third one was favorite books, and attached to all of these was why is that? And you already did a great job with the why is that for your heroes. So you're like your family, your mom, dad, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So for mentors, and this has been an interesting one because the importance of a mentor can't be understated, right? And a lot of the times people go out and sort of reach for them or send random emails asking people if they can mentor. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. What I found is if you network, and you really put everything you have into creating contacts and reaching out to people in your field and people you respect and admire that aren't in your field, a lot of the times they develop organically. And whether they're quote unquote mentors or they're mutual relationships with people that are crushing it in their individual fields, that always seems to culminate. So that's been a huge thing. I have a lot of pretty powerful relationships that, there's a guy, I always tell this story because it's just so crazy to me. A year and a half ago, he's a good friend of mine now. He emailed me one morning, was like, let's be accountability partners. I'm like, what the hell is an accountability partner?
I love it. I should have emailed them.
we text each other every morning at like 5:30, a motivational quote, make sure we're up. And we've sort of helped each other along the way. He, was a lawyer, just left to start his own company. He's doing amazing. And so we kind of throw ideas off each other. But it's been a really cool thing. It's been a process. And that almost feels like a cop-out answer, but
that's a great answer.
That's a great answer, man. So we have peak performance partners that we mastermind every Monday now, actually. We had Lori Harder on the podcast. She just came out with a book called A Tribe Called Bliss. It comes out May 8th, actually. But basically in there, they talk about the power of mastermind, as I'm sure you have masterminds in your life, especially with this person who is an accountability partner. Basically, it's just someone there to help you stay on track and to give you a different perspective. Would you say that's why they're there?
That's 100% why they're there. Yeah.
Love it. Do you have more of those as well? Because I want listeners to realize that it's so much more than us on the mics. It's so much more than your videos. It's like what's behind the scenes that enable you to have the confidence and competence and perseverance to follow through on that and execute on that level is also a lot like a great support system that you've built over time around you.
Exactly. So it's the idea that humans follow through on the belief that they have of themselves. In that quote, and I forget who said this, but maybe Jim Rohn, that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Jim Rohn. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So you find that, and this is why it's so important, right? I mean, when you're talking, communicating every day with people that have a winning mindset and average simply isn't enough, you kind of forget about mediocrity because it's just you don't want to be there. It's removed from your subconscious. And that's why it's so important. And I've definitely seen that over the past couple of years for sure.
Are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? So I'm sure you've heard of this, the law of 33%. We talk about this a lot. It's very important to have a balanced bag, so to speak, of associations. So the top 33% would be people that are 10 to 20 years ahead of you, mentors, heroes, people that can help give you a perspective because they've been there type of thing. 33% is peak performance partners, dream team, your closest friends, your close associations, in your case, that accountability partner that texts you every morning, like that is a group of people that's with you, putting in the reps. And then you've also, you teach and mentor others, right? So I'm sure you've heard Jim Rohn say study, practice, and teach. The way I see it is the mentors are where you study. The practice is the people you're in the gym with, so to speak, or whatever the endeavor is. And then you teach it, and it solidifies deeper and deeper into your subconscious each time. Do you have your life kind of set up in that way?
That sounds right. I certainly, I don't know that I could mathematically say it's divided into thirds, but that's, definitely something that I keep in mind for sure.
Absolutely. Love it.
What was your favorite book? That was Alan's other question. He asked so many questions at once. I understand, Eddie. Trust me. I know what you're dealing with, brother.
No, it's all good. I have a lot of books that I really enjoy reading. I feel like Relentless by Tim Grover is a good one.
That's Alan's favorite.
It's one of my favorites, man. I'm so glad you just said that because I quote it
every
constantly.
episode, every single fucking episode.
This is the only one that the book isn't in the episode,
but it still found its way in.
Okay, so awesome. So that's number one. Keep hammering off books though, because I'm so excited about this. Books get me excited.
Absolutely. I've been reading, actually mostly listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson lately, but 12 Rules for Life I really enjoy. Like I said, Ryan Holiday. There's a real quick book. What's his name? Admiral McRaven. About making your bed. That it's simple, it's to the point, and it just knocked my socks off. Like I have the audiobook and I've listened to it like 2 or 3 times.
So I've seen that video going around on Facebook where he talks about if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. But I haven't read the book. I definitely should. Is that the same guy?
Very similar. Maybe a little expanded.
Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so I have a question that I ask everybody. It's simple, but it's not simple at the same time. Obviously, we kind of got the background of what the YouTube channel means to you and how much you enjoy helping other people. But what is your thing? Like, what do you want to accomplish before you die? What do you want to be remembered for?
To me, I think in a nutshell, building something of significance that helped people. Because it's pretty easy to almost, you know how when you're knee deep in a pursuit and you're focused on building, sometimes you forget why you started.
Yeah.
When you're
man.
brand or you're doing all these things. And so, to build something of value, to that point, most importantly, that helps people, think about life differently. It helps people achieve what they set out to achieve. And I think one of the coolest things, as you guys know, in social media, it's numbers, right? It's subscribers, it's followers. It's almost like you forget that it's people watching these.
Man, right?
And so when you get an email from someone that's impacted, it's like mind blowing. And so, I want to continue to sort of elevate that, and continue for the foreseeable future.
You have definitely done that.
I was going to say, if you died now, you technically would have lived your purpose.
For sure.
But don't die. I'm not saying that.
Kevin, Kevin's a unique cat. Yeah, don't do what he tried to do with the 6-minute mile because he almost had a heart attack.
I almost did expire.
Yeah, but he made it out stronger, I think.
No.
But you, honestly, no BS, you have, without a question, changed my life. I mean, you don't watch a video 1,000 times unless you think it's adding value. So, Ode to Excellence.
Well, that means a lot, man. Thank you. I'm really happy to hear that.
It means the world to me, man. You definitely have helped shape me into the man that I am. And I think that I always try to tell people we all have this sort of vortex of influence. And because of social media, it can be even larger. But even in our own immediate lives with the deeper connections, that it all relies on our leadership. Like, I'm in your vortex, and the lives that I change are now under that umbrella. And it's this constant progression of bettering all of our bests to where we all can live happier, healthier, more productive lives. And I always say this, and I'm never going to stop saying it, happy, healthy, productive people don't want to hurt others. And I think that that's the world I one day want to live in. And I just am so glad people like you exist that we can talk to, mastermind with, collaborate with, that also feel that way,
Yeah, right back at you. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
So good to finally talk to you, man. I've heard your voice literally so many times. I know how creepy that sounds right now.
Yeah, it sounds the creepiest. Jesus.
But it's pretty good.
I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a good comment.
No, man, it's great. So I have a question. So you have 120-something thousand subscribers on YouTube?
Almost 150.
Oh, Jesus. Good for you, man. Congratulations. So back when you started this, I'm sure you were wishing that you could get to the point that you're at now, right? What gets you out of bed now that you're at that point? Like, a lot of people want to get to a certain point. I'll use fitness as an example. I'm at the point now where I never thought I would be where I am physically, and I'm not nearly happy about it. I want more and better. So how has that changed for you once you got to the 150 mark? Were you like, oh, you know what? That's great, but it's time to really, really, really knock this out and really get this going now?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Such a good question. I mean, I think I saw this in the Happiness Hypothesis, which is a great book. It's like, you get to a certain point and it just becomes the new normal. And then it's what's next, right? And I remember I was driven a lot by the excitement. For me, it was 100K, right? I mean, I want to get 100,000 subscribers. That's it. This is going to be amazing. That's my goal. I wrote it on my whiteboard. And then you get there,
yes, the vision board.
You get there and some asshole has 1 million, and it's like, well,
I want to be that asshole.
Well, now we got to step up. And, I think it's good to have that competitive nature, but to your point, you'll never be content if that's what it's about. I mean, there has to be that sense of fulfillment. And I think, where I'm able to get that is drawing from those things that I like, sort of the creative piece, whether I don't necessarily write the music. I kind of outsource a lot of it now. But it's taking that and writing speeches, and now taking the video camera out and creating films, and just doing these things that are new and exciting and refreshing and make me want to jump out of bed. And are completely related to the overall goal too. So that's sort of my mindset. But yeah, quite an evolution, man. Quite an evolution.
That's what it takes, though. That's what it takes. A vision, it takes action, and then it takes just consistency over and over and over and over, regardless of the outcome. You just got to keep doing your thing. You got to believe. You got to visualize it, and if you keep doing it, you'll get to some version of that, and then you can make changes and get to the real version.
And that's Kevin Palmieri's book.
Yes, that's my book.
So one thing that is a very important question, I think. So for me, if you were to ask me, like, what's the number one most important aspect of success in any endeavor, for me, it would be consistency. Like, being consistent, I think, is the biggest hiccup for most people. Obviously, belief is a close second. So what do you think it is?
I would agree. I think consistency, and then also perspective. Being able to take. I guess I harp on this because I just been, the temptation has been there so many times to go back and do what's easier. And so the simple change in mindset that, the speed bumps or the issues that come up are not bad. They're good. You need them. You want them. They make you. And you really look at things differently. And I feel like if you don't have at least some element of that, it's going to be a real rough journey because or maybe I should say a real short journey, because the temptation is to run when things get bad. So you have to be able to look at it as a stepping stone.
That is an awesome answer. I'm glad you said that. Go ahead, Kev.
And that's Eddie. That's another great reason why having people on your level or trying to chase things is super important, because you're gonna get judgment from people, both positive and negative, right? You're gonna get good comments, you're gonna get bad comments, but how do you deal with that if you're not in the room with people who are like, oh yeah, if you're not getting shit on, you're not doing anything. Like, you should be getting shit on.
Yeah.
Because if I went to my mom and my grandmother, who I love dearly, but they have a different mindset than I do. They think I'm fucking crazy, which I am a little bit. but if I listen to the advice, Alan and I always talk about the 80-20 rule, right? Everybody wants to be successful, but they don't listen to the 20% of people that are. They hear, you got to wake up early, you got to study this book, you got to be fearless, you got to just put yourself out there, and they're like, oh no, that's snake oil salesman shit right there. I don't believe in that. But it's like, these are the people you want to be like, though. Why don't you do what they do?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you not avoid, because you can't avoid criticism. How do you deal with criticism and judgment, especially when it's from people who are close to you, that just, they might not see the vision, they might not understand it, or they might just not have the self-belief that you do?
Yeah. Well, I think like we're moving towards sort of the villainization of success, right? And it's like, you don't see the behind the scenes. You see this person has more, tear this person down, whatever the case may be. And, and maybe that's an extreme, but whether it's YouTube or anything else, I mean, you can look up the most successful person in the world. I mean, if Mother Teresa had a YouTube channel, a third of the subscribers or viewers would be talking shit to her.
Right? Dude, that's a
teaser clip. Yeah. I mean, the best way to avoid criticism is to, not be,
Aristotle quote, he says, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing.
There it is, man, right on cue. Sit in a closet, close the door, and no one will ever talk shit about you. That's the way to do it. So it's almost like if you're moving towards relevance, you got to expect it. It's just like the issues that, the small failures, stuff like that comes up. par for the course.
Moving par for the course. I say that all the time, brother. Moving towards relevance. That's another one.
Must be a Boston thing. I don't know.
I'm going to apologize in advance in the future if I say things that you said on this podcast and I don't quote you. That's my bad.
He's going to do it for sure.
Moving towards relevance. Noted.
I'm writing that down so
Eddie
I'll know
Pinero.
if he uses it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I think this is another thing that's super, super important. I've found that, when I still live in a small town. I grew up in a small town. I do think being the best of both worlds is important. Like you said, having perspective. There's the two perspectives, right? You're flying over Logan Airport, you're looking down and you realize, oh, why do I fear judgment? No one down there is thinking of me. But at the same time, the people that you love and that have the most, mind that you're paying them, the strongest associations, you do care what they think. I always say, I don't care what people think, but I do care about what the people I care about think, right? And so how do you navigate that when let's say you grew up with somebody, you have a close association, close friend, close family member, and they do maybe haven't bought into this whole personal development thing yet? Like, what do you do in those circumstances? Because to be honest, I feel like I can't be fully me because I'm not able to always express what's in my heart, because a lot of what's in my heart is this kind of stuff, right? So how do you navigate that, man?
Yeah, and totally different ballgame, right? With people that are close to you, because they're not malicious in their intent. They love you. They want what's best for you. So I think, in my experience, it's been a gap between what I envision and what they envision. There's a lack of understanding there. So a lot of the times it's sort of explaining and saying, "Hey, trust me. Like, let's see this out. I want what's best for me. You want what's best for me." Because risk is scary, and when the people you love, the people closest to you, want to take risks, you almost don't want to see that vulnerability in a lot of ways. It hurts. And so I think dialogue has always been important there, and I've been lucky. My family's been incredibly supportive. I'm not saying it was rainbows and butterflies when I left work. There was they were worried. There was some fire. But when people are on your side and they're pulling for you, it's all, usually works out.
So I have one thing that I really want to say right now, because it kind of came in this whole, it's very, very relevant. And I've never told the story before, but in corporate America, when I left my job, there's one person in particular in my small town, and I'm not going to name any names, who basically thought I was batshit crazy for quitting because of how much money I made.
Yeah.
And what I told this other, I heard this through the grapevine, and what I told this other peak performance partner of mine, who didn't say it, but he heard it, I basically said that's why he'll never make a lot of money, because I had to give up 65 to make 85. I had to give up 85 to make 120. I had to, risk 120 to make 180. Like, I had to risk it all every time I leveled up. And if you're not willing to risk the 65, that's where you're going to stay. If you think I'm insane for giving up 180, then there's no chance you're ever going to make 180. And to me, it's kind of crazy how it's set up like that, right? People do think I'm insane because they're like, why wouldn't you, like, that's more than enough money. Like, why wouldn't you just invest that and live, happily ever after? It's like, it's not about that for me. I'm in it for the growth. Like, I hated what I was doing. Like, what do we say to people that are there? Because, dude, it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't think like we do.
Right. Well, there's a lot of millionaires that hate their lives.
Yeah.
I think that's just sort of the reality of it. And for us, it's in the adventure, right? And yes, there's a point where you can sustain yourself and more, but you got to get there. And I think, if fear holds people from sort of, taking that jump, I would say. But, yeah, I guess that's my answer to that.
You said that it seems like we're moving towards a society that kind of puts being wealthy and having a lot of money as like the villain.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Is that because the people who are afraid to chase it they just automatically make it seem like a bad thing so they can sleep at night better? Or is it because, a lot of wealthy people aren't really contributing in a positive manner? Like, I hope I'm going to be a millionaire. I 100% will be a millionaire, and I will donate a shit ton of money, and I will volunteer, and I will, I'm not going to change. Money will not change me. But there's a lot of people out there that are afraid of money, and I don't know why, because money is what you do with it. But why do you think that society is moving that way?
I think a lot of it's ideological, right? Equality of outcome. And it's a lot easier to be to play a victim than take responsibility. And you can say that at any level. And that's the same reason you take a Justin Bieber or Tim Tebow, these guys that have sort of revolutionized, our societies. They've done great things. They're accomplished. And you go to a bar and people are like, I hate Tim Tebow. It's like, why do you hate Tim Tebow? Like, what? All the guy's done is move forward. But it's a lot easier to tear down than build up. And it's even harder to have that conversation with yourself. Why am I not there? What can I do to be there? Because you have to strip yourself down and you have to be vulnerable, and it's not fun. But you got to do it. And so, long story short, I think that's why. It's a lot easier to stomp your feet and point at the world than it is to point at yourself and go, what can I do?
Oh, man, that's such a good answer, man. One thing I want to piggyback on that is I think it's this whole – I always try to tell people, like, you'll never become what you villainize. And – that's different verbiage than I usually use. Usually I say you will never become what you subconsciously dislike. So for example, if you hate wealthy people and you kind of have that story of all wealthy people are evil, which again is why mentors are so important, because you're going to realize very quick that wealthy men, I am so fortunate, man. I have 6 to 7 close self-made millionaire entrepreneur mentors, and again, no one's self-made, but like they're not, part of what Tony Robbins calls the lucky sperm club, right? They created it on their own, and it makes you realize like these are wonderful people who do wonderful things with their money, and it gets rid of that subconscious notion that we all grew up with, or that many of us grew up with, where it's like, oh, money is manipulative, it's evil, it's all this bad stuff. And a lot of times when I'm in town and stuff, like if you're in the room with me, like fitness is gonna come up, because it's a big part of what I do. It's all our bodies are a walking billboard, and it just comes up. And what a lot of times when it comes up with certain people, you can tell that they have a very strong aversion to fitness, which I think is a problem, because they kind of demonize it. Like, oh, selfies make you arrogant, and the gym is all about being a meathead. And it's like, you're never going to be fit if you keep saying that. Like, you got to get around people who are fit, who are still wonderful people, so that you can kind of break down that story you're telling yourself to stay the same. I have one friend in particular who just is constantly like demonizing being in shape. And it's like, dude, like, this is your health.
Right.
I know you've come across people like that in your life. Like, what do you say to them? And like, how do you basically explain to them, how do you get them to see something that they cannot see? Because they're kind of pigeonholing themselves.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point, by the way. I don't want to let that go. The whole, the us versus, or them versus me thing that you're sort of, builds up over time. But your question specifically was, if someone's acting like that, how would I approach it?
Let's say you're in a room with someone who hates running. They're like, oh, I'm not a runner. Like you probably realize, I see people with the most limiting beliefs all the time. And I know that I have them too, and I have people around me that will tell me, mentors specifically. But how do we get people to realize, like, you're literally pigeonholing yourself? Like this one person in particular who just clearly hates fitness. Like, you're never going to be in shape if you keep hating the one thing you need the most. Like, right. What do you tell that person? Or what do you say that can get them to see that they're their own worst enemy?
Yeah, I think it's the Socratic method. I mean, when you ask questions and someone's point is truly irrational, when you engage in conversation, that usually becomes exposed pretty quick. I mean, human beings are naturally tribal, right? We tend to break into factions. I mean, the founders of this beautiful country had that at the forefront of their minds when they drafted everything.
Yeah, right.
I think, to be able to recognize that and just ask the question, right? Why do you want to identify as that? You hate running. What is it you hate about running? Why? I mean, is it a bad experience? A lot of times it's anecdotal.
Yeah, right.
So I think, again, to answer that question at a high level, it's engaging in conversation. I always believe that, opinions or viewpoints that don't hold much merit, when you have a good, thorough discussion, usually that sort of floats to the surface.
I like that. What about the people, I know I'm throwing a lot at you. What about the people that have an aversion to difficult conversations? There's a Tim Ferriss quote that I absolutely love. I'm pretty sure it's from the 4-Hour Workweek, which I'm sure you've listened to or read. And if you haven't, don't let the title deceive you. It's a phenomenal book. Yeah, great book. The title for a while, like, threw me off. I had an aversion to it because I'm like, I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I want to work all the time. I want to work hard. But it turns out it's a phenomenal book, and that was a very markety title. But Tim Ferriss basically says this in the book. He says the quality of your life will be in direct correlation to the number of difficult conversations you're willing to have. That goes for your intimate relationships. That goes for your friendships, your family. What about the people that run out of those rooms, man? Because, dude, I'm intense. I get it. Like, if you're in the room with me, I'm probably going to bring up some real shit. Like, people do have a strong aversion to that. What do you do? Because I know you're probably like that as well.
Yeah, first of all, that's a deep quote. I really like that. I don't remember reading that. But I think, the idea of having those tough conversations is growth. I mean, to me, there are a few words that everything comes back to. And in this particular situation, it's vulnerability, right? I mean, it's tough to not be the expert. It's tough to not know what you're talking about. It's tough to engage in conversation with someone that knows more than you and can talk circles around you. But I mean, there's no other way to grow.
Speaking of which, we want to talk about YouTube after this.
yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm terrible at YouTube. Speaking of vulnerability,
right?
Keep going. I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
No, I mean, that's pretty much my answer. I mean, it's just understanding that it's uncomfortable and stepping into that.
And it's uncomfortable for a reason. I can attest to this because I wasn't always who I am, Eddie. Like, this is a new thing for me. Like, this mindset, this self-belief, this confidence. I used to be the one who was running away from those talks. And now I sit there, I take it like a man, and I realize that in order to grow anything, you need to throw a little shit on it. And that's part of it. That's part of it. I am confident enough in myself because now I know that this is all constructive criticism. Nobody's telling this to me to hurt me. They're telling this to me so I can, see a lot of times you don't see the problem that you're creating. You're just kind of living in it. And somebody will say, hey, look, you're fucking up here. And you'll be like, oh, you know what? I didn't even know that. And then you can try to make the necessary changes. But it all comes back to the people that are doing it, if they're in your inner circle, are doing it to help you. They're not doing it to hurt you. And once you realize that, you'll respect them more, and I guarantee it'll make your relationship better, 100%.
Exactly. Criticism is always a tool. I mean, what you do with it varies, but, embrace it.
Right.
The Tim Grover quote from Relentless, since you mentioned that book, he says this: the only difference between feedback and criticism is how you take it.
Oh, there we go. Talk about a perfect quote for the conversation.
Right. So I love that quote, but I'm not going to lie, man, when especially in my intimate relationship, like when criticism comes, it's hard not to get defensive. It's hard not to get triggered. So I don't want people to think that like we're perfect. Like I've lost my temper. I've been upset. I've been, vulnerable and cried and stuff. And it's very difficult to remember, but just remember like they're trying to help you and that at the end of the day, you're you and you're doing your damn best, and that's awesome. So we're running out of time here, I can tell, because Kevin just did his little signal. Because I could ask probably 800 more questions and take your whole day, Eddie. But thank you for coming on. And is there anything in particular you want to plug? So obviously your YouTube channel, Your World Within, unbelievable personal development channel, which
next
by the way,
level.
Yeah, next level, man. And personal development channels, in my experience, don't always do that well. So I applaud you. What do you want to plug in addition to that?
Sure. Well, I appreciate that, man. I guess keep it simple. Just, YouTube, Your World Within, and then Instagram, Your World Within too. I actually talk about criticism. I had someone message me probably last week, and they were like, Eddie, I love your stuff. I've been following you forever, but stop being an idiot and put your videos on Instagram too. And I was like, shit. That's
man, I do wonder why. So I can teach you how to do that, by the way, if you want to know how to hammer them to your phone and then throw them on Instagram. Do you know how to do that logistically? I probably shouldn't have assumed you don't.
Oh, what did you say?
So I can help you. There's a particular app that I use to download videos directly from YouTube to then have them on your phone. Then you can clip them in iMovie to 1 minute, and you can put them on Instagram.
Oh, I've been doing it for about a week, but it's a real tedious process.
Oh, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Show me what's good.
I got your back. If you go to my Instagram right now, there's a 1 minute demo clip of my girlfriend's vlog from San Diego that I literally just did this with. That's a good example of what you could do with your videos, which would, by the way, bring your page to a whole new level.
Oh, God, yes. For sure.
Awesome. Definitely an opportunity.
We'll also send you a teaser clip of this episode
Yes.
that you could share
All
as
right.
well, man, and we'll teach you how to do that. So you want to plug the YouTube channel? You did that. Your Instagram handle is what?
It's at your_world_within.
Perfect.
Right on. All right. Well, Eddie, you are next level, and I am so glad we got the opportunity to sit down and talk with you. You are wise as hell, and I know anybody and everybody who listens to this will guaranteed take something away. And like you said, at the end of the day, that is the goal. That is our passion. That is our purpose. So I'm so happy that we are in alignment enough to be able to talk to you, man.
Likewise, guys. Love what you're doing here. So
Right on.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Eddie. Also, next time you are in Boston, let us know. We'll have you back on the podcast. We'll get a coffee. We'll get a run. We'll get a lift. We'll do something.
Sold. Sounds good.
Awesome, man.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gents, we are signing off. Bye.
Thanks again.